Hi there. So I had something recently happen where one of my friends is going through some relationship stuff like I had gone through years ago. What was reminding me of is I used to feel like in my relationships, like certain things felt impossible. And so I'm having this about another area of my life, like a feeling of impossibility because there's certain patterns that have shown up. And I keep thinking I'm doing something different, but I clearly am not if I'm still having the same issue. This reminded me of, and this is just a little tool I have too. So at the time I was coaching people and I was also living in a situation where I was miserable. I didn't like the location I was in. I didn't like the living situation I was in. I didn't like anything about it. And my relationships were just attachments. And I'd go on dates with people and it would go nowhere because, of course, as an anxious avoidant, I couldn't manage to do that. Well, let me back up. So when I used to do this walk and when I lived in this area, and I had also done this experiment. This experiment was that I would do these affirmations. Like I wrote out all different affirmations and there was probably like 50 and it would take me a half hour to go through them because I would say each one 10 times. And I did this for a year. Every morning when I would walk, that is what I would do. I did this and it was so ridiculous because nothing really came of it. Things like, I mean, I did talk about relationships, sure, that ended up happening, but that's because of the action I ended up taking and the changes I made emotionally in my life so that I could actually be emotionally available. So, getting to the tool, which is not affirmation. I was noticing this idiotic mantra and it was in the back of my head. Like, where did that story even come from, right? So it was bullshit. And like I was just walking and then I heard the thing in my head. And it was something like, you're never going to have a healthy relationship, or it was something along those lines. Okay. It's like the thing where, you're on a diet and then you hear your head, there's donuts and in your head you hear, you can't have that donut, you're fat, or some really mean thing. That's what I'm talking about. That voice. Okay. And the one that comes up like when you make a mistake and tells you how dumb or horrible or whatever it is that you are, but you're really not. All to say, when you have that voice talking to you, it can feel business as usual. It's familiar. We're not going, it's true, not true. Sometimes we might argue with ourselves, but really, we're not usually arguing with ourselves about it. I caught that when it was, you're never going to have a healthy relationship, or again, it was something like that. And I was like, huh? And I caught it because I gave it attention. And then this other part of me was like, is that true? This all happened at once. Is that true? And this other voice was like, no. And I felt the no through my whole body. Never again did that idiotic mantra come up that wasn't true, that was saying something was impossible for me that was not impossible. Thinking about that recently because I thought, wait a minute. Why is it doesn't matter, okay, if it's a relationship, if it's a job, if it's where you live, if it's what you live in, if it is money, if it is you want to go back to school and you can't find a school, or you're stuck at a school, or you know what I mean? Like we have all these little stories about things, friendships, socializing, not socializing, just all these little tidbits, and they affect our mood and our attitude. And when they affect our mood and our attitude, that also rules what you will allow yourself to do or not. It will keep you going in circles unless you pay attention to what is going on back there and you start questioning it. And I was obviously able to get into a healthy relationship. I've been with my husband almost 8 years, but I realized I had a little jacked up mantra going on right now about something. And that's what I'm saying. Like, wow, it's about insecurity around money. Like you're always going to be insecure around money. And that was my dog, by the way, making a little snort. Yeah. Anyways, I thought this is the same thing. And I heard a no. And I realized at that moment, it was that pattern, right? But that fell away. Like, wait a minute, I do deserve security because as an anxious avoidant, security is what we want. We want it without pain. We want it without losing ourselves. We want it how we want it. Okay. But the thing is, I grew up with drama. And so I'm used to drama, which would make for insecurity, right? And even though I don't purposely create insecurity, I seem to attract it in certain parts of my life. You can use that little exercise, that awareness exercise on anything you want. And I used to call it, like when I use it on clients, I'd be like, I call it popping a feeling, like getting rid of a feeling to replace it with a different one.